Namaste and good evening. Welcome to the NENCID talk program. My name is Jigyasha Rai Yangkhurung, an executive committee member of Nepal National Committee on Irrigation and Drainage NENCID. So welcome you all to this 13th episode of NENCID talk program. NENCID has been organizing this talk program as a part of Irrigation and Drainage talk series, and we are pleased to say you that this talk program has completed a year now. Therefore, we'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your participation, love, and support. In this talk program, various multidisciplinary and distinguished national and international speakers working from water sector has given their presentations covering different topics such as water-related disaster and landslide, irrigation modernization, irrigation management, institutional aspects of irrigation, multi-purpose water infrastructures, groundwater, water diplomacy, climate change, and irrigation policies, etc. We take this opportunity to thank all the eminent speakers for their valuable contribution to this program, and thank you all for your participation, love, and support. We hope to receive your constant support in the future too. Please send us your suggestions, comments, and feedback so that we can make the program even better. Please write to us at nencid.nepal@gmail.com. We will share the information regarding the 14th episode at this end of this event. So please be with us till the end. Now, before starting the main event, I would like to state some of the ground rules. Today's session will be an hour long. First 20 to 30 minutes will be a presentation, which will be followed by question and answer or discussion round. During the session, please kindly mute your microphone, and we encourage you to maximize the use of chat box to ask questions, comments, or to express your viewpoints. In order to share your opinions verbally, please unmute yourself before speaking. Now, with this brief background, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Vishnu Pandey from Institute of Engineering, Pulchowk Campus, who is also an executive committee member of Nepal National Committee on Irrigation and Drainage NENCID, to introduce the speaker and moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Namaskar, good evening, and welcome to you all. Could you go to next slide, please? I'm really pleased to introduce our own Dr. Dibya Kansakar sir, who doesn't need any introduction among this group, I believe, who is a well-known expert. So he is a hydrogeologist by profession. Dr. Kansakar is a professionally hydrogeologist, and he was with the Department of Irrigation, the then Department of Irrigation, now already Department of Irrigation and Water Resources, since 1991. He took early retirement from the government service from the position of the superintendent hydrogeologist in long back 2008. He has a wide range of experience in various capacities in government resource, groundwater resources, investigation and development in water resource policy, planning, and management. He has worked in all the sectors from the practice to the policy. He contributed in the formulation of water resources strategy of Nepal phase 1 in 1996. Earlier, he was associated with the Department of Mines and Geology as a geologist long back, 1976 to 1991, and conducted research in the field of regional geology of Nepal Himalayas. He has worked as the executive director of South Asia Consortium for Interdisciplinary Water Resources Studies, which is called as SASI Waters, based at Hyderabad, India, and the director, he directed the South Asia level regional capacity building in integrated and interdisciplinary water resource management project, and the crossing boundaries project in 2008 to 10. As a team leader of preparation of long-term vision of Nepal's water and energy sector vision 2050 for Water and Energy Commission Secretariat during 2011 to 13, and the team leader of the facility management and capacity building team for the ADB funded Government of Nepal's project Water Resource Project Preparation Facility during 2014 to 19. He was the coordinator of the newly started master's degree in interdisciplinary water resource management program at Nepal Engineering College during 2007 to 2008, and a visiting professor for the same program from 2011 to 28. I'm sure it doesn't cover his wide range of expertise and the contribution in this sector, but it's a very, very brief information. With this, I would like to hand over the floor to Dr. Kansakar. He will be talking about a very interesting topics about what could be the way forward for developing integrated groundwater surface water projects in the context of Nepal. Sir, you will have around 25 to 30 minutes. Please go ahead. Could you please stop this sharing the slide? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vishnu sir. First of all, I would like to thank NENCID and particularly Vishnu sir for inviting me to this August platform. Well, today I'm going to talk on cluster-based groundwater development for year-round irrigation, potential learnings and way forward. Jigyasha Ji, how can I share my slide? I want to share my screen. Host has disabled.
I think
no,
you can share
this co-host to him. Jigyasha Ji, I think he is not admitted co-host.
Okay.
Yeah, it says
maybe you can share now.
Yeah, now it should be okay.
Okay, I'll try. Is it on the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the title that was given to me, cluster-based groundwater development for year-round irrigation. So in this presentation, I have focused on three key phrases. Number one is year-round irrigation, and then the groundwater itself, and cluster-based groundwater development. What I'm not going to talk about in this presentation is the issues around groundwater technologies, the sources of energy for groundwater extraction, and economics of groundwater irrigation, and also the operation and management modalities for deployable irrigation systems. These topics are so vague that these topics are good enough for separate presentation on its own merit, which we can do in future if needed. Now, first of all, I will talk about this year-round irrigation. In Nepal, what we understand by this terminology, year-round irrigation, is providing or getting access to irrigation services for three crop seasons. One is monsoon crop, winter crop, and spring crop. Our data or our records suggest that 39% of the total irrigation area in Nepal has year-round irrigation. But then there is no specific information about how much of this is under the conjunctive use of both groundwater and surface irrigation. Now, in the irrigation development plans, there are separate targets set for different time periods. And as we can see, National Water Plan, Agricultural Development Strategy, and the latest Irrigation Master Plan. Particularly, this Irrigation Master Plan has targeted for 100% year-round irrigation coverage by 2045. Now, in the policy, what is stated about year-round irrigation is that in irrigation policy of 2016 become summer, it says that conjunctive use of groundwater and surface water is a priority. At the same time, it also says that probability of conjunctive use is a criteria for selecting a new irrigation project. This is again reinstated in the recent new later irrigation policy 2017, which states that year-round irrigation will be developed in the existing seasonal irrigation areas through reservoir projects, rainwater harvesting, and groundwater utilization. This is what the policy has been saying in our case. But what is the policy in practice as such? We find that the policy emphasis on consumptive use of water resource has been consistently missed out in the plans and programs. The process of intervention in either sources of water, groundwater and or surface water, have always been isolated from each other. As a result, the issues and concerns that we face in irrigation, and even in those areas where there are consumptive use is in practice, the issues are treated in isolation. This is the current situation. Now, what does this consumptive use mean and how it has been defined? There are several definitions we can find in consumptive use. The first, you can read on the screen. The first three definitions, they talk more about the utilization of groundwater and surface water in combination. Whereas the third definition, which is by Vincent and Dempsey, it emphasizes the use of combined groundwater and surface water, particularly in irrigation, and the purpose is for optimal productive and allocative efficiency. And it also says that the management, integrated management, not just the utilization of the two different sources together, but also the management, integrated management of both these resources. Whereas the fifth definition, it also emphasizes that use, combined use, and then for irrigation purposes. And it also says not just the combined management, but also says that the institution, one particular institution, is managing both the groundwater and surface water resources together. So these are the different definitions of consumptive use that are in existence and that are being practiced in different parts of the world. So I think we need to be clear in case of Nepal that what consumptive use means when we say that consumptive use is a priority in our policy. So this is one need that I see. And then another significant feature of our irrigation policy is, since 1992, we emphasize on demand-based development and participatory management. Now, when we say demand-based, this particular demand-based irrigation development policy has given farmers access to different types of irrigation technology. They can place demand and then get access to those kinds of technology because they want to gain control over different sources of water for their farmland. So this has been going on since 1992, and there are several irrigation development programs and which are implementing or say promoting different kinds of technologies like agency managed irrigation systems, farmer management irrigation systems, deep tube well irrigation, shallow tube well irrigation, treadle pumps, sprinkler irrigation. All these different technologies are in practice and they are being promoted by different agencies. And each of these programs are being implemented under the banner, under the caption of demand-based. But unfortunately, each agency is working in isolation from the other. And the fact that, I quote Suman Rimal Gautam's research, the fact that the other technologies and sources of water exist is not denied, but the target-oriented nature of intervention programs tend to largely deny the existence of other processes in the same locality. This is what has been the reality on the ground. So this is one thing we need to do. Now, the numbers in this slide are known to every one of us, so I'm not going to deal on that. But what I would like to emphasize here is that, less or more, groundwater is, everywhere, all across Tarai, particularly for use in agriculture. And based on our, assessment of the potential, 69% of the Tarai land, even taking into account of the soil nature of the soil and soil land capability, land suitability, 69% of Tarai land are suitable for developing year-round irrigation by shallow-tube technology alone, without depending on deep tube technology. Even just shallow-tube is, can be accessed. This is the potential that we have in Tarai. Now, I will deal with the second point, which is cluster-based. And I would like to start with the definition given in a dictionary. What does cluster means? According to, in the Oxford Dictionary, it is stated, a group of similar things or people positioned or occurring closely together. That's a cluster. So when we say cluster-based groundwater development, so do we mean a group of shallow tubules or deep tubules which are positioned closely together, or it's a group of farmers occurring close together? So these two different, interpretations can be made about when we say cluster-based groundwater development. And these tubule clusters can be imposed. That means we can, when we go and install a tubule, then we can install those tubules close to each other within certain parameters. Or those tubule clusters can evolve without external, intervention. So it can evolve by itself, by the farmers' own initiatives, or the agencies like the government agencies or the development programs. They can impose the cluster of tubules. Likewise, the farmer group, cluster of clustering the farmers, that also it can be either imposed, for example, the tubule user groups, or it can evolve. Now, for example, the water market, groundwater market, tubule can be shared through this formal or even informal sharing of the equipment. So we should distinguish between the imposed clusters of tubules or imposed clusters of farmer, or the evolving, by itself without the government or project interventions. Tubule clusters can evolve, or clusters of farmers around the tubule can evolve. So this is the, the main basis that we have to define what does cluster mean. Now, in Nepal, so far, all the tubule development projects have been, imposed clusters of tubules and imposed clusters of farmers. And the main justification that is given is, the financial and economic efficiency, then the technological efficiency, then the efficiency in agricultural service delivery, and efficiency in agricultural market operation. So these are the justifications based on which we have been going into the field developing the tubule programs. But the reality is that the shallow tubule technology is highly divisible, and because of this divisibility of the technology, farmers prefer to have individual ownership. This is the response, or this is how the farmers take this salutable technology when it comes to its owning and operating and using for the agriculture development. Now these are the names of few major projects that we have implemented. Irrigation project, the ILC project, the NIC project, all these are large deep tubal irrigation development projects, and these are all based on imposed clusters of deep tubals. Similarly, imposed clusters of shallow tubal projects are this community shallow tubal irrigation project, CGISP, Community Groundwater Irrigation Sector Project, and Sagarmada Integrated Rural Development Project, and several other projects are there. And water users group or tubal groups, these are the imposed groups of farmers, and that is a common feature in all of these projects, irrespective of the technology, deep tubal or shallow tubal. Now I'll come to the irrigation system. What is an irrigation system? How it has been analyzed and understood by different scholars. The first is, it says that irrigation systems should be viewed as intricate complexes of physical, technical, organizational, and normative legal dimensions of water control that develop in a wider agroecological, politico-economic, and socio-cultural context. Irrigation system is not just a physical infrastructure that conveys water. There are so many different, elements, features, and dynamics which gets into operation once there is an irrigation system. And we have to view an irrigation system in this, complex scenario. Likewise, the second definition says that different technological interventions, be it surface or groundwater, be it deep tubal or shallow tubal, or treaded pump or other kind of technology, in irrigation should be conceived as a socio-technical complexes within the water resource system. This is another way of viewing an irrigation system. And the truth is, technology is a mediation between society and natural resources. Society cannot stand on its own and work. Once it gets into a society, then it interacts and it sets its own dynamics. But in Nepal, we have been looking at agriculture and irrigation development as a simple linear problem. It's a technical and economic issue. So once we have irrigation as an input, then things will move on its own. This is what a simple, simplistic view of irrigation system. Now, I will talk a little bit about this bioluminescent groundwater irrigation project, which is the largest groundwater irrigation project that has been undertaken in Nepal. It's a cluster of deep tubals developed for cluster of farmers. Each tubal has its own water users association, and they manage, operate, and use. And on the left is the picture that shows the clusters of tubals which is commanding the whose command area is shown in different colors. Altogether, this project fully developed 169 deep tubal systems, and they were handed over to the users. Now, the current status is that 120 deep tubals are being run with pumping equipment. On the other hand, 21 deep tubals, the farmers are not using any pumps. They are just utilizing the artesian flow. And 28 deep tubals have been closed. Now, the reason behind why farmers, opted to utilize only the artesian flow and not increase the tubal yield to cover larger, command area is itself to be understood from the perspective of the previous slide, which states that it's a complex within a water system. So we should look at bioluminescence project as one complex within an intricate system of complexes. Because in bioluminescence project area, there are so many other pre-existing complexes with respect to irrigation. For example, there are this bioluminescence project area, most of that area lies within the command area of the Soro-Thatis Moses irrigation system. Then there are various Kulu systems based on the local collars. And also there are the subsurface spring, which they call jharans, and then the irrigation return flows, drains, which are flowing free of cost. So bioluminescence project has been introduced in an area where there were so many other pre-existing complexes. So this is one addition complex. Even with the dual systems constructed under this bioluminescence project, farmers on their own again added one more complex of the shallow tubers. And these shallow tubers are, working with a very thriving water market, which has evolved. The reason is, that farmers weigh the economics of using different sources of water, because they look at the economics at the same time while gaining the access and the control over water, because they want to secure their water supply at a lower cost, at the lowest cost possible. This is what they do. So this is what has evolved in bioluminescence project. Now, I will talk a little bit about the shallow-tubal irrigation projects, which are also cluster-based. Here also, the tubal clusters are imposed, and each tubal are given to a farmer group, because it is group ownership, so cluster of farm. But the experience with the shallow-tubal irrigation projects is that, forming a group to own a common tubal has always been very difficult. It is time consuming, and it involves so many different efforts. In other words, it has a very high transaction cost. For example, say in 6 years' time, this IFAD funded project could install just 800 shallow tubals. Likewise, this ADB funded CGSP project, it could install around about 1100 tubals in 9 years. And in a span of 20 years, when ADB and Agricultural Development Bank was working, only 4% of their tubals were owned by the farmers. So it's so that group forming is a very difficult task. And again, more than that is that, what we have found in the ground is that the so-called group-owned shallow tubals have, turned into individual tubals within a very short time period of the project. As soon as the project ended, the group disintegrate, and it is owned by one single person. But that means virtually all the shallow tubals ends up into individual ownership, because the technology itself promotes that. Now I'll talk a little bit in more detail about 3 different areas where shallow tubal clusters have either been imposed or has evolved. So one is in Chapa, the Arjun Lara TDC. Another is Dangihat, which is in Moran district. And the third one is in Bankin. It's in Hirmania village. Now, these three case studies are based on my research together with two of my colleagues who are, I think, in this today also, Surendra Sakir and Surendra Shrestha. Now, talking about this CGSP project, this project was designed in such a way that shallow tubers shall be, developed in a VDC as a cluster. So each VDC is one shallow tuber cluster for development, and each tuber is to be owned by a group of farmers. And when the project was designed, only diesel pumps were permitted. The design itself was that diesel pump, but then at a lower capacity, 5 horsepower, because the farmers were using 7, 8, and even 10 horsepower pumps, which were highly fuel inefficient. So the optimum size design was 5 horsepower. So for 5 years, from 1998 to 2002, the project allowed only the diesel pumps. But then in 2003, project changed its policy and permitted also the electric pumps. The speciality of this CGSP project was that this project wanted to eliminate or remove this subsidy, capital cost subsidy, which the government had been providing until then. So there was no subsidy, but the project facilitated access to credit by giving group guarantee-based loan without any collateral. And the farmers were given capacity building packages in agriculture, global technology, marketing, and all kinds of things. Now, we studied 2 different VDCs, one in Morong and one in Chapa. And in Dangihat VDC in Morong, this was, when the project was designed, this was studied in much detail. And Dangihat was one of the pilot sites where the project was to start. So from 1998 to 2002, only diesel pumps were allowed, and from 2003 onwards, electric pumps were also allowed. But the project could install only 19 shallow tubers in 5 years, and even with electric pumps, only 3 more tubers were installed in Dangihat. This shows how difficult it is to promote or to develop group-owned shallow tubers. Now, the experience in Arjundhara is slightly different. This project was installed in Chapa in a late stage, only in 2001. So by that time, the farmers have got enough information about the CGSP project and how it operates and how it supports. So they were fully aware of this CGSP package. And that is why the farmers, they insisted on the electric pumps. They wanted electric pumps, and because of that, the project has to change the policy by permitting the electric pumps in 2003. The interesting part was that when the project was launched, there was no electricity supply at all, but still the farmers insisted on electric pumps. They were very smart, they were negotiating with the project for electric pumps, but at the same time, they were installing this community-based rural electrification program. So they were getting, they were working on having access to electricity. So once there was electricity supply, and once the project changed its policy, in a matter of 2 years' time, they installed 72 shallow tube wells, which is a drastic contrast to the experience in Dangihat. The main main reason is that, we did this study in 2007, and we found that the unit cost of water pumped out from an electric pump is at least 7 times cheaper than the unit cost of water from a diesel pump. So this energy cost is the main factor, in shallow tubewell or deep tubewell irrigation. This also we have to remember. Now, this is another case in Pandey district in the western part, and this is very interesting case. In this VDC, in 1985, Agricultural Development Bank introduced the shallow tubewell technology. But since there was no electricity, only the diesel pumps were used. And the cost, and also the requirement of forming a group to meet the command area requirement, it was there were only few farmers who could, meet all the conditions of Agricultural Development Bank. So there were only few takers. Then came the treadle pump technology. Now the treadle pump technology was very popular, but only among very, very small farmers, those who have 5 kattha or 7 kattha or 3 kattha land. And then came the electricity. But the electricity supply network was not homogeneous. In the northern part, it was sparse, while in the southern part, it was a little bit dense. The effect of that is that in Himalaya, when we did this study,
Dibya, sir, it will be great if you can finish in a couple of minutes.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I have only 4 more slides.
Sure, thank you.
Farmers were they were small farmers, and we counted 637, 73 shallow tubewells. Interesting part was that every tubewells were owned individually and also privately financed, except for those initial few shallow tubewells financed by ABB. Now, this is the map. You see this part, the northern part, where electricity network is a little bit sparse. The blue dots are the diesel pumps, and red are the electric pump operated shallow tubewells. So we studied these 2 blocks, Koreanpura, Janglisingpura, and one Bangotna block. In these 2 blocks, the difference is that this northern part, this Koreanpur, Janglisingpura, it has 553 hectares of land, and there were 101 shallow tubewells and 2 dug wells. And out of them, 37 were run with diesel pumps and 64 were with electric pumps. And tubewell density was, there was 1 well for 5.37 hectares of land. On the other hand, in this Bangotna area, in an area of 220 hectares, there were 121 shallow tubewells, and only 2 were diesel pumps. All are electric pumps. And there were 26 treadle pumps and 9 dug wells. There was a well for 1.4 hectare of land. And not only that, not only the ownership, even the groundwater market was very thriving in this part, in Bangotna, whereas the groundwater market was not existent in the northern part. So the lessons we learned, from these 3 different places in Parivalamini, Chapa, Morong, and Bangke is that energy cost, since this is the most critical determining factor in groundwater irrigation, we have seen that as the Bangotna area has shown, electricity supply network can catalyze the emergence of shallow tubewell clusters without any external intervention. And external intervention means it involves substantial amount of transaction cost. Then groundwater market is a more viable, popular, and sustainable mechanism for sharing a tubewell than imposing group ownership. Thirdly, since shallow tubal area, shallow aquifer is available all over Tarai, less or more, and since shallow tubal technology is highly divisible, farmers prefer shallow tubals over deep tubal for several reasons. And for farmers, groundwater irrigation is just one additional source of water to complement the existing other surface water sources. Because in Tarai, mostly, they have several different sources of water. Kola irrigation system, or drains, or return flows, or even tubals and groundwater. So, expecting year-round irrigation in practice with groundwater alone doesn't make any economic sense to the farmers, because they have very good sense of economics when it comes to spending money on the inputs. And farmers organize themselves around different complexes of water sources rather than just one. So expecting to develop year-round irrigation with simply groundwater alone in any particular area is not possible, because the farmers do not want that. Farmers want several different complexes, and they operate within that. And the institution or the management of different water sources in the complex, within the complex, farmers can devise, and they are capable of devising the mechanism. And even in some cases, they devise the institution to manage both groundwater and surface water simultaneously, as the research by Gautam has shown in certain areas in Perivaldumini project area itself. So this is all I have to say, and these are the literature that I have relied on in developing this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And
thank you so much, sir, for very, very enlightening presentations. We really appreciate it. We highly encourage all the participants to post your questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and I speak out directly. For the time being, there is one question from Basudev Lohani, sir. How many hectares we developed till now through shallow tubal and deep tubal? If Dibya sir is updated, maybe you can share it, or maybe if some other colleagues from the department is aware, maybe others can answer as well.
I think this particular questions can be answered by the colleagues in Department of Irrigation itself, because I'm not associated with the department.
All right, thank you. I mean, later on, maybe someone can write down in the chat box also for that one, if any colleagues in the department is aware about that. And Neer Sakeswar has given some information that due to the lack of spare parts of the BT pumps, some deep tubals in that particular area is non-operating condition. Some farmers are operating the deep tubals by lowering the foot valve of centrifugal pumps, and that indicates that shallow water level are still within the suction limit of the centrifugal pumps. So this is useful information, I believe. So are there any other questions or queries from the anyone, or even the comments or inputs in the discussion? Because this whole forum's meaning is to have the kind of group discussions. We get various ideas together, we brainstorm and try to get something out of it for the betterment of the department and the country. Questions, queries, or any viewpoints or comments? Yes, I can find one more from Jagadish sir. Can we use river diversion project from surplus to deficit area other than groundwater? Which one is good, I think, whether diversion or using more groundwater? That's a very, very pertinent question, I guess. Dibya sir, would you like to take on?
My take on this is that we should make use of every kind of possible water sources, be it surface, the return flow of groundwater, or even diversion, because we have to make the use of all these different resources, right? But the from the point of view of a farmer, they always look for a lower cost source of water. They always think about the cost of water, and when it comes to groundwater, it is their main cost is the cost of energy. So the whole emphasis on my presentation and so far my experience both as a project implementer as well as from the interdisciplinary research on the ground, what I have come to view is that the energy cost of groundwater is a biting, it's a pinching point for the farmers. So as long as they have an alternative which do not pinch their heart or pinch the pocket, farmers would like to have those resources. So diversion projects are also necessary, and without that, in certain parts of our Tarai land, we cannot provide irrigation. And as I said that expecting only the groundwater to serve the irrigation year-round irrigation need of a farmer is not a reality in practice, because it becomes very expensive for the farmers. So they choose the crops, and they even choose the cropping intensity with respect to the cost of water, besides other cost of other inputs.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I highly encourage all the participants to participate in discussions. While there is no question at the time being, let me utilize this time. So in one of the earlier this talk series also, there was a discussion on year-round irrigation. Some people think that the concept of year-round irrigation is an elusive concept. Maybe I may not be using the correct word, but something like that, because it's never next to impossible, because we are not getting 24/7 even in our drinking water tap. How can we expect that in the irrigation farms? What are your thoughts in that one?
First of all, in my slide on year-round irrigation, I said that year-round irrigation is understood as the irrigation services in 3 crop seasons. Now, this is the viewpoint from the viewpoint of the service provider. But when it comes to from farmer's perspective, simply having access to irrigation and even including the other inputs to agriculture doesn't assure that farmers will go to 3 crop farming, because there are several other factors like the availability of labor, the market for the produce, and the kind of produce, kind of crops that they can grow. So there are so many different, as I said, it's a complex within several, small complex within several complexes within a larger complex. So for providing, from a provider's point of view, year-round irrigation is possible, because we have groundwater, we have surface water, and for surface water also we have this diversion, rainfall, and there's so many other things. Yeah, from technical point of view, if it's a linear problem like input and output, it is possible. But whether it will really be materialized or it will be realized by the farmers is a whole different story. So it is not illusion, but rather whether it will happen or it will be internalized and practiced by farmers is a different thing.
Yes, thank you, sir. There's one more query about the availability of the groundwater. Again, this is a statistics related concern. So I'm not sure whether you might have this updated information or not, but you may give some sense. What is the status of groundwater resources in the Tarai region? whether there are cases of causing land subsidence due to over extraction, especially in the context of Tarai, and any information about groundwater potentials in the hilly regions. There may not be statistical information, but some thoughts on that. Would you like to share some thoughts?
Okay. I will keep hills and mountains on one side and Tarai on the other side. So far, there has been the lowering of the piezometric head of the confined aquifer, that too seasonal, lowering of the groundwater piezometric head in case of deep wells, and similar is the case for medium depth but confined aquifer. The piezometric head fluctuates, but it is not homogeneously, the same picture all across Tarai. There are certain districts or certain parts of Tarai where groundwater potential is lower compared to certain other districts or certain other parts of Tarai. So we cannot generalize it, but considering the way the farmers have been utilizing in irrigation, and because of the cost that is involved in extracting groundwater, at least till now in Nepal, the farmers do not over extract groundwater because it costs money. Unlike in India, certain parts of India where electricity is free, and then they don't care about the cost, then that's a whole different story. Fortunately, we don't have that kind of policy on electricity, so we are not in that situation. So farmers have been using only supplementary, they supplement the surface sources of water. So I would say that we should not be concerned much about depletion of groundwater resources when it comes to the way our farmers have been using water. Now, in the hills, I would say that we have to be very careful in extracting or exploiting groundwater resources in Tarai. My study in the hills, groundwater potential in the hills and the groundwater resources in the hills, and the way it is happening nowadays is that tube wells are being constructed either in the valleys or in the lower part of the hillsides. And when we pump out groundwater from such locations, basically, because the watershed is very small, watershed area is very small, its catchment is small. So when we pump out, then naturally what we are doing is the depleting the moisture, soil moisture in the higher part of the mountain, upper part of the same mountain. So if we extract groundwater at the foothills, foot of the hill or in the valleys, then there is a risk that we might trigger the drying up of the natural spring sources up in the hills, because water is the same, the source is the same, and the reserve is the same. So I think extracting or expanding groundwater, tube well technology in hills is a risky business.
Thank you, sir. There's one more query, actually two more. One is, how do you feel prepared metering for cluster-based groundwater? Is it a feasible idea? This is from Madhukur, sir. Yeah.
I think we should have a presentation on this topic separately.
Yeah.
But because this
very
is
briefly, your this reflection.
This is a very interesting topic, and we need to discuss in a very larger context. Metered pump operation is good in the sense that, you know, the collection of water charge from the tubewell of users becomes very transparent. So it is a very useful technology. But when it comes to the economics of this, you know, the whole system, it is questionable. This idea has come from the Budding Tract Development Authority in Bangladesh. Now, so we have recently, I think, you know, we are going in that direction in this Bagmati irrigation command area. There has been a pilot well with a meter distance. You know, the management of the tubewell, one particular tubewell is, it becomes very simple and very transparent, and collecting fee from farmers is very much efficient. There is no doubt about that. But whether, you know, the model that Budding Tract is Budding Tract has can be transplanted in Nepal is a big question. We have to consider so many different aspects of tubewell development, management, operation, running, and then the farmers involved. So it's a nice idea for collecting fee. There will be no arrears. Good.
But at least good. It needs to look into various factors, and a good research is required in that one, right? And there are two more questions actually before we wrap up. This will be the last question for today. One is, could you please share your experience on water marketing meaning? What does it mean? Whether it is use of the pump set by the renters from their own boring, or sale of the pumping service by the owners to their neighbors. This is one question. And the last one, this is from the Kim Sarma sir, and another from Dr. Prachanda Pradhan sir. What is the impact of climate change and groundwater in Tarai? If you take on very, very briefly, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, first question first. When we use this water market, groundwater market, in Tarai, we have seen so many different forms of water market. Renting pump, renting tubewell, then actually selling water by hourly basis. So there are different forms of water market. I hope I have replied Dr. Kemba's question. And President Sir's question, you know, impact of climate change in groundwater is, for the time being, the science of groundwater with respect to climate change is at the moment very little understood. First of all, because the response response period of any climatic changes in groundwater is very long. Even seasonal response takes time, and with respect to climate change, its response time is even longer, and it is still an uncharted territory, I would say, to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we will conclude the session here. Could you please stop sharing the slide? We really thank Dr. Dibya Ratna Kansakar sir for really great contribution in this talk series. It is really enlightening to learn about these very, very pertinent topics, and that is really useful. This kind of discussion for designing whether the Baila Buza type of scheme should be promoted, expanded, or strengthened, or whatever it could be, so that a large area of the agricultural farms can be brought on the irrigation scheme. Really, thank you. I personally enjoyed a lot, and I hope the same applies to others as well. And also thank you to all the participants for your inputs through contribution in question and answer session. Like usual, we'll be announcing next episode, and that will be from, again, our very own Dr. Rajan Bhattrai. So he is, everyone knows him in this community. He's our own cadre from the department, and currently in the capacity of Deputy Director General with Department of Hydrology and Meteorology. In the 14th episode, he will be talking about future perspective of hydromet services in Nepal. I'm not going to read his bio now, but we'll be circulating later, and I'll read in the next episode. With this announcement, on behalf of the NENCID and all of us, thank you to you all. Wish you good evening and nice days ahead. Thank you. Namaskar. Good night.
Thank you very much.